Welcome. My name is Sharon Burke. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. We support neither candidates nor parties. We have a mission of encouraging informed voter participation in our democracy. In accordance with League policy, I do not live or vote in this school district, and I have no interest in this election other than that I hope I do a good job for you tonight as your moderator. This is my first virtual forum ever. I hope you'll have patience if we run into any technical difficulties. This forum is sponsored by the Ramon Valley High School Parents, Teachers, and Students Association, the PTSA. Tonight, we are speaking to the 3 candidates running for one position as the Area 2 trustee for the Ramon Valley Unified School District. This is the first time that the school district has conducted elections by area. Voters may be surprised to learn they can no longer vote for all 5 trustees, but will elect 1 trustee from their area. Area 2 covers the east side of Danville. It includes all or parts of the school attendance areas of Green Valley, Sycamore, John Baldwin, Vista Grande, Greenbrook, and Tassajara Hills. League members Janet Hoy and Karen Dolder are our volunteer timekeepers. The timekeepers will signal candidates with colored signs at 15 seconds remaining in their time and to stop. Each candidate shall have 1.5 minutes for opening remarks. The past 2 weeks, we've collected questions from voters that I will pose to the candidates, who will have 60 seconds each to respond. The order of answering the questions will be alternated, and each candidate will be asked to respond to every question, even if the question is addressed just to one candidate. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes for a closing statement in the reverse of the opening statements. It's possible if I get a question that's particularly weighty, I may give the candidates additional time, and I will announce that in advance. I'd like to remind the candidates, in my experience, the voters prefer it if you keep your answers to your own qualifications and positions and not to your opponents. Our first candidate to speak, chosen by lot, is Greg Marvel.
Thank you. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the PTSA at Ramon Valley High for sponsoring this and giving us an opportunity. So I want you to know a little about myself. I've been on the board 20 years now. I started in education when I was 20 years old, going to college in Southern California. I was driving a school bus. And my job at that time was to make sure the little kiddos got to school safely. And my entire career since then, having gone into school district administration, has been to do the same thing. It's to protect kids. It's to do what's best for kids. And for the last 20 years on this board, that's what I've done. I've done what's best for kids, not always what people wanted, not always what the administration wanted, not always what some of my fellow board members wanted. I've always made decisions based on what I thought were best for kids. And in the time that I've been on the board, we've seen massive improvements in our fiscal position, in our facilities program, building 9 new schools as an example. We've got substantial increases in our rankings academically. We're one of the highest rated school districts in the country. And I would like to continue that effort. The things that we have now, we're hit with major pandemic, financial issues, and declining enrollment all at once. And we need to work together, and you need experience on this board to make the right decisions as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Marvel. Our second speaker is candidate Shelley Clark.
Good evening, everybody. From the time I chaired my first auction in 2008 at John Baldwin Elementary, I have been a strong advocate for students and parents in the SRVUSD. After raising over $400,000 in 3 years at John Baldwin, I saw the impact I could have on the educational experience of all of our students, and it became my passion. My 2 children have been through schools in the San Ramon district. The last one graduated in 2018, but my passion and commitment to the students of this district has not changed. It is my love of this community and wanting to give back that prompted me to declare my candidacy for a board seat. I bring a completely unbiased view and unique perspective to this board, born from the experience I have gained at every level of public education and my career. As PTA president at John Baldwin, Ed Fund president at Charlotte Wood, and PTSA president at San Ramon High School, I work closely with students, parents, and staff, working side by side to bring organizations together for the benefit of our students. As chairman of the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee, I learned about how the district utilizes those funds in relationship to the budget. And as vice chair of the Facilities Oversight Committee, I learned how our bond funds are used to build new and improve existing facilities. I also bring 17 years of experience as a financial manager for a technology company, a company my husband and I founded in 2003. My deep ties to the parent community, teachers, and students, and my years of experience as a parent leader have prepared me for a seat on this board.
Thank you. I apologize, our timers were not in sync on the last two candidates. So Karen and Janet, I just want to reaffirm it's 90 seconds on the opening and you're giving a 15-second warning. Correct? Okay, were you distracted, Ms. Clark or Mr. Marvel?
Just once.
I apologize.
I tried not to pay attention and it
I
worked.
truly apologize.
It's okay.
That's one of those technical difficulties I was talking
No worries.
Our third candidate,
Sharon,
yes.
I have to reset my timer. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Ready.
Apologies all. Our third candidate is Priscilla Graft.
Hi there, my name is Priscilla Graft, and here's why you should vote for me for school board. I'm the only candidate here with kids currently in our schools. Why is that important? Having kids in our schools means I'm connected. It means I'm living distance learning. It means my kids' teachers are broadcast into my home every day. It means I'm talking with teachers, I'm talking with fellow parents and students throughout my everyday. I have the on the ground, immersed in our education intel really needed on our school board. Currently, the lack of understanding and connection to our district's families and teachers is glaring. I'm also the only candidate with an MBA from UC Berkeley Haas. Why is that important? It means I value education. It means I'm a quick study. It means I can process complex problems, and it means I have financial savvy. The incumbent has been on the board for 20 years. But don't worry, Greg, when I get on the board, I will tap you as a resource. I hear you walk around the neighborhood and I like to walk too. I also have 20 years of professional experience, including the last 6 years at Clorox, where I work in transformational marketing. Why is that important? My role involves change management and it involves corporate culture work. Have you felt our school community's climate recently? It's tense. You know what? That starts at the top. We need someone on the board who can help heal our culture back to a place of trust and unity. Someone who's skilled in change management and who has a proven track record of making sound decisions that have big impact.
Thank you.
A vote for me is a vote for putting our students' voices and perspectives back in the boardroom.
Thank you, candidate Graft. Now I'm going to questions we've received from the voters and parents in your area. And the questions are coming from the people that are listening. These are not my questions. They've been submitted to the PTSA and to the league in advance. Ms. Clark, you will be the first to answer. A reminder that you all have 1 minute and the timers will give you one 15-second warning, which is the yellow sign, and an ending sign, which is the red sign. I ask you all to help me out in us staying on time and making sure we get to all the questions by keeping your remarks on time. There were 2 questions about your priorities. Candidate Clark, this is what the voters wanted to know. What is the most important matter for the board to be addressing at this time? And what is your #1 priority upon election?
I think the priorities for the board right now are twofold at least. And that the first one is how to get kids back to school safely. and working with all the stakeholders, students, parents, teachers, staff, to make sure everyone is sufficiently protected, and finding steps forward that we can take that are deliberate and well thought out. And that entails a lot of planning and a lot of budgeting. And that would be a priority, dealing with COVID and dealing with the results of the way that that affects our budget. My second priority would be looking at the budget, because we are in a severe deficit this year. So I would want to ask some hard questions about what we have, where the funds that we're receiving, where are they going? Are they being used efficiently? Can we cut costs in other areas? I think we have to prioritize our students first. So learning and teaching have to be a priority for us in this district right now. Those would be the first things that I would want to tackle.
Thank you. Candidate Marvel, your priorities upon election.
First priority is getting kids back to school. I have from the very beginning indicated that I believe very strongly that when we get the legal and health go ahead to bring our kids back, we do that as expeditiously as we can. I believe we bring our kids back in a safe environment, reasonably safe. You can never protect from everything, but you do have reasonable measures that you can take. And those kids who don't want, and families who don't want to return, I believe we need to make sure we have a solid distance learning program for those families that would like to leave their kids learning from home. Second, budget, critical. The COVID-19 budget crisis in this state is severe and massive, and we need to clean it up. We need to prepare for it in 21-22. Those are two major priorities.
Candidate Graft, what are your priorities upon election?
My number one priority is to get an option for our students to return safely to in-person school. We really need a strong parent voice on the board to make stuff like this happen. And we've seen why that is, as we've watched the board navigate creating a plan to return to school. It's been very frustrating for families. There are some kids where distance learning is working, but there are so many kids where it's not working. And parents are, honestly, there are so many parents right now in our district who are feeling like their academics this year for their kids is just, it's a wash, and they're just trying to keep their kids socially and emotionally healthy. And we need that voice on the board, the voice of someone who's connected, because right now there are comments coming at the board like, hey, do we really want to work on this waiver? School will look so different. I mean, these kinds of comments are just not reflective of our community's values and feelings. And
thank you. So there were several questions in line with all your priorities about the COVID pandemic. I'm going to ask all of them so that we can have a thorough discussion of this issue. Every voter asked the question in a different way. Candidate Graft, I'm going to call on you first. This voter wants to know, what changes would you like to make in the current remote learning structure?
I would like to have a later start time. We have our elementary school students, we have their eyeballs on a laptop at 8 a.m. So we're starting school earlier for them. And they're on their laptops till 2 p.m. And their red eyes and their headaches and migraines tell the story there. The schedule throughout the day has been really tough for families to manage. The lunch is uncoordinated, et cetera. There are a number of tech problems, et cetera. Our teachers are doing the best that they can, and they've been really inspirational. But distance learning is not perfect. And, but I really would, I think we could make some schedule changes, and we need to focus on the safe return option as well for the families who don't have the option that they desperately need right now.
Candidate Marvel, the same question. What changes would you make in the current remote learning structure?
I would continue our efforts to get feedback from our our parents groups, our teachers, and our students. I just met earlier in the week with 25 kids about how distance learning was going with them. So that we can tweak it, make it better, with the understanding that the goal needs to be getting kids back in-person learning. Distance learning, I don't care how good a job you do, and I think we're doing a very good job compared to last spring. Distance learning is a pale comparison to in-person learning. We need to get back as soon as we can when the state and the county will allow us. And right now, we don't have that ability. We're hoping we will, but right now we've got a waiver in to see if we can start. I don't have a lot of hope that the county will give it to us, but we are committed. I'm committed as a board member, and the rest of the board is equally committed to trying to get kids back in person.
Candidate Clark, the question is remote learning structure.
So what I've heard from the stakeholders and some of the students are the following things: less screen time. The kids are spending an inordinate amount of time in front of the screen. So trying to find a way for them to be able to have more breaks, a little less screen time, coordinated lunches between grade levels, which I know has been a struggle for the district, but nonetheless, it's something that parents and students have asked for. Teacher professional development. This has been a really, really tough time for our teachers. And after hearing from them in their town hall last week, I really realized how hard they're working and how many extra hours, some of them 14 hours a day, putting in trying to deliver the type of education that the parents in our district expect. So we need to support them in every way that we can with more professional development, mental health services. Some of the funding that we got from the state we can use for that. Those are the things that I would change.
Thank you. The next question is about wearing masks. Will you support kids wearing masks and social distancing when school reopens? Candidate Marvel.
Short answer, absolutely. Because that's what the health professionals have indicated that we need to do in order to protect our kids and our staff that are coming back into the classroom to teach our kids and to staff the offices and the para-educators that are there to help as well. So absolutely, it's the right thing to do. And we'll be very diligent. Unlike some districts, you saw the video a while back of a school in Georgia where they were packed in like sardines and had no masks. That will not be happening in the San Ramon Valley Unified School District. Kids are going to be socially distanced and they're all going to be wearing masks.
Candidate Graft.
Yes, I support following our medical requirements, and social distancing is important. When we return to school, we want to stay back in school. So we need to do. I see Marvel is nodding. We need to do everything we can to really make this a permanent move back to school. I just want to say, being a parent in the school district, I don't have to host surveys to hear how it's going. And I really, when you have parents on the board and people with skin in the game, they're not going to be fatalist about the waiver. They're going to say, like, we're going to do everything we can to present all the options we can to our district. So I just kind of want to address that, because I think that there's some passion lacking around the waiver application process and the trust and that it's going to work. And I think our students deserve more than that from their trustees. And you would get that if you had parents on the board.
Candidate Clark, mask wearing and social distancing.
Today, in doing my own research and trying to get more information, I spoke to a pediatric hospitalist who's the chair of the State Government Affairs Committee, who has children of his own. And the upshot of that conversation was that for him to see kids coming back to school, definitely masks would be required, and all other safety precautions is a step in the right direction. We have to try to fully protect our staff, our teachers, our students, and families as we navigate the return of our kids to school. So a big yes on masks, even at elementary level.
Mhm.
Candidate Clark, the next parent has a question about mental health and morale. And she says that that is as important as physical health. And although physical health is the main concern right now, she feels like having no specific plan in place is ruinous to the morale of students, particularly teenagers and high schoolers. And she says she knows this is more of a statement than a question, but perhaps I would just like you to address how you feel the morale of students are and what can be done to help the morale of students in the district with this situation.
I think a lot of our students are doing well. I think there's also a big portion of our students that are struggling emotionally. And I think the social emotional learning portion of our remote learning right now needs to be developed further. I have been involved heavily in mental health services for our students, certainly at the high school level and middle school level, as part of being a founding member of the Challenge Success Team. At San Ramon High School, we did a survey a few years ago to survey our students on the issues that affect their mental health most. And what we found was they're not getting enough sleep. They're having a huge amount of academic pressure and pressure from families and the school, also from their peers around academic performance. So I have been a big proponent of programs and things to help our kids' mental health for a long time, which included changing the bell schedule at San Ramon High School to a later time, changing the homework.
Thank you. Candidate Graft, the issue is morale for the students of the San Ramon Valley School District.
It's like one of the biggest issues right now. Again, I mean, parents are tabling academics right now, and believe it or not, and this is a high performing district, that's the situation we're in because they're so worried about their children's social and emotional health, especially in high school and middle school. And frankly, past experience is not relevant here. You have to be living this pandemic and understanding what we're dealing with for the first time as a nation and as a generation. And so that valuable on the ground experience is crucial here. Plans bring security. We have not had a plan coming down from the board. We still don't have a plan. And without a plan, without that security, people are leaving the district. Some of our biggest benefactors are leaving. Wait lines at private schools have never been longer. We need to get this right.
Candidate Marvel, the issue is morale in the district.
These are very tough times for our kids. These are very, very tough times for our students. Unprecedented times. I believe that we need, if we can get back into, at a minimum, hybrid and preferably full in person, some of those issues are going to go away. But there's some foundational things that I, as a board member, have also pushed. Things like later start times at the high schools. We redid our homework policy to make it less stressful. We instituted professional learning initiatives so that kids would have the ability to pick what would work for them and create less stress. We've increased mental health services so that the kids who were overly stressed. But ultimately, you're not going to solve the fundamental problem that we're all experiencing today. All 31,000 plus of my kids, because they're not just your kids, I'm responsible to make sure that they try to have a quality education and that their mental health is protected. And we've got to do that. And you do that by getting kids back that want to come back in person as soon as we can.
Thank you. Candidate Marvel, this next question goes to you first. What criteria will you use to evaluate when and how and what safety precautions to put in place for school reopening?
First of all, we're going to have to follow the guidelines issued by the state and the county. But I believe very strongly that we're going to follow the science, we're going to follow the data, we're going to follow the facts, not the hysteria, not what the social media is saying, science, data, and facts. And of course, we have to follow the regulations from the state and the county. But we'll implement them as effectively and as compassionately as we can to get kids back that want to get back, and families that want to leave their kids in a distance learning environment, that they will have an equally robust program for them. We protect the safety and the well-being of all of our people in our campuses, our kids, as well as our staff members. I think that is absolutely critical.
Candidate Clark, the same question, your criteria for safely reopening the district.
Well, I think that it's exactly what Mr. Marvel said, and that is that we as a board have the power to administer our policies and the way that we roll out an opening. But we are bound by the mandates and the directives from the health services and the state. So working within those guidelines, we have the power to make sure that we do this efficiently, we do it thoughtfully, we do it carefully, so that we don't avoid more unwanted changes or backpedaling, because those are very detrimental to our students who are already being pushed beyond their limits in some ways with dealing with the pandemic and remote learning. So I say a careful, thoughtful, deliberate approach within the guidelines, and to do it as efficiently, as quickly as possible.
Candidate Graft.
Yes. We need to follow science and the data, and our community does. Our community all knows very well, we're living this, that we're working with state guidelines. We know them well. We know the checklist items because they are our life as parents who are watching our kids struggling through this situation and wanting it to be fixed quickly. I gotta say, I mean, we still haven't been received a survey to say if we want to return or stay remote. Our elementary schools, if we had done this right and been on top of it, we could have an approved waiver and be moving forward. Our secondary schools need to open as soon as it is, as we're read, and there's just been, we're behind. It's taken a long time to get us ready, and families are really frustrated.
Thank you. The next questions are more general questions about the district. Ms. Clark, we'll start with you, Candidate Clark. I believe you have a new superintendent, and the question is about him. How will you support the new superintendent, Dr. Malloy?
Well, I have been pleasantly surprised by Dr. Malloy. The thing that really resonates with me about Dr. Malloy is that he is a very genuine person, that the way that he is communicating with the school as a whole, with the school district as a whole and all the stakeholders, is in a very honest, genuine way. I believe he is trying to incorporate all points of view and all stakeholders in the decision-making that's being made at the district level. And I realize that there's a lot of people that maybe are unhappy with the way things have gone so far, but I think he walked into a terribly difficult situation, and that's an understatement. And I think he's done a great job so far of trying to incorporate and let all voices be heard and make sound decisions. So I would welcome the opportunity to work with him.
Candidate Graft, Dr. Malloy is the subject.
Yes. So the community is very happy to have a new superintendent. He has a new aura about him. He is much more communicative. He's deliberate. He came in, he got things together. He started moving through that waiver checklist much faster than his predecessor did. At the end of the day, it's early. Our kids are not back in school yet. A superintendent is accountable to the success of the students. So students are suffering right now. The majority of students are suffering right now. And so we've got to work closely with him. I'm excited to work with him and to partner with him. But these are early days. So he's on a journey and we're on it with him.
Candidate Marvel.
Yes, as president of the board, I ran the recruitment that resulted in Dr. Malloy being our finalist, and he agreed to our employment offer. And I think he's a great choice. I think he's going to do wonderful things and has done wonderful things for us in the short time. I'm going to take this brief time to also comment about the issue about the waivers. When he came in, as he was coming in, the county had refused to allow this district to submit waivers for our elementary kids. We were not allowed to submit waivers till about the time Dr. Malloy arrived. And he then immediately took the challenge up and began to prepare what the county then issued as, here's the criteria. They did not allow us to submit waivers prior. He picked the gauntlet up and he ran with it quickly. He's doing a phenomenal job. I think he's a good choice. I look forward to continue to working with him in the coming years.
The next voter has questions about the board process, and there are two similar questions. I'll read both of them so that you get a full idea of what the voters are thinking. Everyone keeps talking about being different. This voter wants to know. Ms. Graft, you're first on this question, but are you willing to vote against the district's proposals? Give us an example of something you would not have voted for in the last year. And a related question, the board is expected to rule by consensus. Each trustee supports the majority vote with a we and not an I focus. Please give an example of a vote outcome that was not your preference, but you demonstrated support for the majority vote. Obviously, you did not have a chance to vote, so you could just comment on something that came before the board that you would have supported, even though it was not your position.
Okay, so yes, I think it's very important to acknowledge that it's a body of 5 trustees. They work together. You don't make decisions on your own. You are part of a governing body, and respect for that is very important. So you have a vote, but it's a group, which is why it's very important to have a vote of a parent on the board. So yeah, over the past year, there are a few votes that I would have approached differently. And so let's just do the return to school vote. So the trustees came together and they voted to return the kids to school. Some voted to return full-time, some hybrid with a remote option.
I'm going to give you another 30 seconds. Sorry, I wasn't being fair here. I asked two questions, though they were similar. So if you would give her another 30 seconds, please, Karen and Janet, and the other candidates, of course, also.
And you know, I think this is a really good one. So, so the president of the board, he voted to return all of our students to school, secondary and elementary. And the science didn't completely support that. And we learned that the next day when Governor Newsom said that it was remote with an elementary school waiver. But in that meeting, the president of our school board, he dropped some good knowledge and some good inspiration, but around scientific data and around the importance of this vote. And the other trustees didn't really eat it up like they should have. And that's why you need a parent on the school board, because you need a closer. And in order to have a closer, you need someone with skin in the game who's going to push the issue. And we've seen Mark Jewett do that a few times.
Thank you.
Good.
Candidate Clark, I'll give you 2 minutes as well. Is there a board decision that you would not have voted for, but you would have demonstrated support? Can you give an example?
Well, I can give you an example of what partially prompted me to declare my candidacy, and that was the board vote last year to give retroactive raises to the executive cabinet and to a departing superintendent. And this is something that has always been done this way. And the board found themselves in a place where we're in the middle of a pandemic, and traditionally those raises have been connected to when teachers get raises, and the teachers got their raise earlier in the year. But between the time the teachers got their raise and the time that the board in March voted on these retroactive raises, the world turned upside down, and we were in the middle of a pandemic, and there was a big shortfall in our budget. And I would not have, at the very least, I would have frozen those until they had a better idea of what the funding and the money that we had was going to look like. I don't agree with having a system that has administrative salaries connected to our teachers, because they're two different things, and there should be a different system to be able to ascertain what merit raises administrators should get versus teachers, because there's great differences in the amounts of money. So that's one. The other thing is that came before the board was a resolution to support Prop 15. And I know there's some people that find that very unpopular, but I would have voted to support, and I do support Prop 15, because we need more funding for our schools, and it has to come from somewhere. And I feel like that this proposition is a way for businesses that have been able to not have to pay their way to start to pay their way to support our schools.
Thank you. Candidate Marvel, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Yes, I was on the losing end. Mark and I voted to reopen fully. I don't, and I, by the way, don't agree with the governor's decision to close schools. I think that it should have been dependent upon the community. We have in the San Ramon Valley one of the lowest infection rates in the state of California. We could have easily gone back. He took that right away from us. The science, the data, and the facts supported us going back. So I think we made the right decision at the time. I ultimately lost on that vote to go. So we had to then go to hybrid. I supported hybrid because we didn't have a choice, and the majority of the board wanted to do that. You can sit in the corner and be angry about losing, or you work with the people that are in the majority on that issue to try to implement what the majority have decided as effectively as you can. On the issue of salary raises for management, yes, it is a long-standing tradition that we treat everybody in this district the same. I find it interesting that nobody had a problem with budget situation when we were giving raises to teachers, but had a problem when we tried to give raises to principals. Everybody in the district gets treated the same. We're all in the same lifeboat. We're all rowing together in the storm, trying to get kids to the next destination. You don't throw some of the important team members out of the off the lifeboat. We also had planned strategically in the budget for similar raises for everybody in the district. So it wasn't a hit to the budget that we hadn't already planned for. It was the right thing to do. I stand by it. It was a 5-0 vote, even though as a board we don't always agree on it. This was something that was the right thing to do.
Thank you. This next parent is asking about the resources program. They would like to know, candidate Clark, you're going to be first on this one. What experience do you have with the resources programs? What ideas do you have for improving the way kids are assessed and treated for learning disabilities?
So special education and resource is a very, very personal topic for me, because my son, who is now in college, had an IEP from the time he was in first grade all the way through high school. So I'm very familiar with the process. For me, when I started the process, there wasn't enough information available to me as a parent from the district as to what services would be available to my child when he needed them. So one of the things that is part of my platform is to make sure that all parents of students who have special needs at whatever level are made aware and are supported in their journey with their child to get the services that are available to them and their child when they need it. I think that this community is sometimes underserved because of the funding issues, and I think we have to do more of an outreach to that part of the population to make sure that they're taken care of and that there is equity and that they get the services that are due to them under the law.
Thank you. Candidate Marvel, the subject is the resources program.
I have been, since I've been on the board, a strong advocate of enhancing our special ed and resource programs. I think the most vulnerable kids that we have in the district are those with special needs. And it's our obligation as board members and as trustees, as administrators, to ensure that those children are protected, that those children are given the resources that they need to try to be successful in life to the best of their ability and our ability to serve them. When I got on the board, our special ed program, frankly, bluntly, was horrible. We had a horrible reputation in the Bay Area for educational programs for special ed. Today, we're considered a destination district for special ed families. We've made massive strides. However, it's not good enough. We must constantly be re-examining what we're doing to serve the most vulnerable and needy of our kids. And we need to work on that daily to ensure. COVID right now, our special ed kids are the most vulnerable in COVID. We need to get them back. And we have plans to do that as a board to get them back as soon as possible.
Thank you. Candidate Graft, the subject is the resources program. We're back to 1 minute. I'm sorry, I should have said that.
Yeah, I agree with what candidate Marvel said. Our special ed students should actually already be back in school, and we heard from the state that was allowed a while ago, and we still have not provided that to our students. So another reason why you need to have a parent on the board who's really pushing for these things, because their neighbors and friends and their kids' friends are dealing with this reality. The other thing I'd like to do is I would like to go to Sacramento with Superintendent Malloy, and I would like to lobby for more full and fair funding for our special ed for our district.
Thank you. This next parent wants to know about teacher performance. Candidate Marvel, this is going to go to you first. And the parent says, obviously some teachers are better than others. How do you believe teacher performance should be evaluated? What ideas do you have for continuous improvement?
I'm a strong believer in staff development, first of all. I have when I managed school districts and community college systems, my attitude was we had what I called the tripod of, method of management. So you make sure you hire the best that you can. When you get the people that you've hired, you make sure you give them staff development to make sure they understand what their role and responsibility is, that they can effectively teach within the classroom. And the third part of the triad is when you can't get a teacher to understand their role in the classroom, you better be documenting that teacher, working with them, but failing that, you don't sit there for 5 and 6 years to try to get them to move along, because those are 5 or 6 years where kids are getting hurt. You move on them quickly if it becomes clear that you're unable to effectively make them a good teacher. So that tripod effect has worked in my 30+ year career in education. And that's what we implement here, by the way. That is the method we use in this district.
Thank you. Candidate Graft, the subject is teacher performance. And what ideas do you have for improvement?
Yes, so that triangle of education, it's students first and teachers and curriculum are what drive that achievement for our students. So it's all about continually hiring the best and the brightest, and then continually providing them the support they need to evolve their instructional skills and know-how. We know that there are I want to first say on the elementary my experience in the elementary school level has been great, and our teachers really know how to adjust learning to keep everyone in their class curious, and I love that. I have heard from families that there are a lot of challenges on the high school front, is particularly with math. And we're, as a district, really committed to rigorous and relevant curriculum. And we need to make sure that the teachers that we have teaching our students and preparing them for college and career know how to inject that relevance factor that is what makes learning really sticky.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
sorry, I didn't see the timer.
Candidate Clark, teacher performance.
Yes, I think, it starts with obviously hiring the best teachers that you can, the best educated, the best for whatever subject that you're choosing. But I think it comes down to the kind of support that teachers get, and professional development is so important. And I think that's one of the things that the district struggles with because of the budget issues and the funding. But it comes down to site level help for the teachers. So administrators at the site level, as in the high school, for example, math, it's not that we're not supporting our math teachers or that we aren't giving them what they need. It's that there are very few qualified math teachers to choose from. So we need to really up our game in offering support. I know at the high school level, administrators are assigned to certain departments and certain teachers to help mentor them and give them the tools that they need. But there is a very short window of when you find out that you think a teacher is not going to work out before you can have the teacher leave. So that's a short window that we need to make that estimate and decide whether that teacher is to be kept or not.
Candidate Clark, you're going to stay up for the next question. You'll go first. As I said at the beginning, this is the first time the district is electing trustees by area. So this voter wants to know how you will go about engaging your trustee area constituency for feedback.
The way that I would do that is the way that I have done it. I've always done it being a parent in the district, and that is to do outreach. Number one, as a board member, I would be going out to school sites in my area and in the whole school district to get to know my constituents and their concerns. I would use surveys. I would have office hours. So if people wanted to come and talk to me for any reason about whatever issues are concerning them, I would use whatever was available to outreach to my community, as well as being in my community, participating in my community. And I may not have a child in an elementary or a high school this minute, but I have a college student who is at home, remote learning, not having the college experience that he was promised. So I really understand the struggles that parents are having, because I'm a parent too. And those are the ways that I would outreach. I have very deep ties to this community.
Thank you. Candidate Graft, constituency engagement.
Okay, so being a parent of kids currently in our schools gives me a huge leg up here. And it's really what's missing from our board. We see time and time again that, issues come up, and Mark Jewett, the SAT, PSAT discussion came up just this last week. And Mark Jewett, the only board member with kids currently in our schools, was the one who pushed on, it really is good to have practice time. It really is good. So I think that's number one. Number two is I'm a big advocate for assigning each trustee school sites that they visit regularly, and then everyone rotating so that we have, overall exposure. I believe in holding office hours. I believe that our families deserve more than one-way email communication. They deserve that back and forth. They are the primary advocates of their children. And student reps. I think we need to get students more upfront in that boardroom and get their voice louder, because we can hear it straight from them, and it doesn't get better from that.
Candidate Marvel.
Yes, we already do board rotations for our various school sites. Every school site has a board member that's their representative. I believe in not just having that in our trustee area. The biggest danger of having trustee areas is that you have a trustee that only cares about their area when they're really making decisions that affect all 31,000 plus kids. So, and on all 36 schools. So what we have to do is have board members that are invested, yes, in their local area. And I have visited every school in my area, and I will continue to do that, but I also visit schools throughout. It's critical that we invest, each board member is invested in the district, not just their trustee area.
Candidate Graft, you'll be first for this. I believe this question is addressed to you, although it does not mention you by name, but the other candidates will have the opportunity to comment on it as well.
Okay.
During this campaign for Board of Education member, having children currently in this district has been brought up as a campaign point. My question is, if you have a child currently in the district, how would you vote and decide when an issue that benefits your own children is not aligned with what may benefit another segment of students or goes against the majority of students?
Okay, thanks for the question. So I am not running to make decisions that only impact my children. I am running to provide that on the ground voice at the boardroom table. Couple of things I want to say about this. One is we know that diversity of thought produces the best output. We already have institutional knowledge on our board. We don't have term limits. We have board members who have been on there for decades. We've got the institutional knowledge down, the experience, check mark. What we're missing are parents, the parent voice, the on the ground intel. Mark Jewett is not rerunning. We need to put a parent on our board. If we don't, we will become even more disconnected than we currently are.
Candidate,
There was one more thing. I'm forgetting it. I'll remember it later. It's okay.
you can put it in your closing
Okay,
statement.
perfect.
Candidate Marvel, the subject is parents on the school board.
Every board member has had kids in the district. I think it's important that I would have an issue with the board member who has no kids. I think it's important that you have had that experience. My child went to district schools. My granddaughter, from my oldest daughter, went to district schools and graduated from this district. I don't currently have one, but it wasn't that long ago. I think it's important that you understand the perspective. I think I made this comment earlier. I think it's valid. A good board member is going to do what's best for all the kids in the district. My philosophy is very simple. The greatest good for the greatest number. And if that didn't support my child in the school that they're going to, but it helped the district as a whole, sorry, I'm throwing you under the bus. We're going to do what's best for kids overall. So I don't think you have to have kids currently in the district in order to be an effective board member. I think you have to have a passion about protecting all 31,000 kids and doing the best you can for each and every one of them.
Candidate Clark.
Having been a parent, being a parent of two children who went through the school district, and my last one just graduating in 2018, because I don't have kids in the school district right now, I bring a completely unbiased view. And in addition to that, I have 12 years of experience at every level of public education, complete total involvement. And when we talk about parents being on the school board, there are two candidates in Area 3 who both have children in school right now. So experience, unbiased, I have experience at every level and total involvement in all the organizations connected with the school district. And I've served on many district boards. And I have a passion for all children. And that's why I'm running.
Candidate Marvel, you'll be next for this question. There were two different questions about transparency. And this voter wants to know, what's your plan? What is your commitment to increase transparency with staff, parents, and students?
Well, first of all, we're televising our board meetings. very often, I have to tell you, it's been disheartening sometimes before COVID, where we would have very important issues that we were talking about and making decisions on, affecting all of our parents and all of our kids, and you'd see 5 or 6 people in the audience. And that was disheartening. So I do like the fact that we're letting people know that they can see our board meetings live, or you can see the taped version whenever you want. I also believe that we're going to be doing more town halls. The superintendent has already committed to this board that there's going to be more town halls with him involved, more outreach to the community. We already have stakeholder committees that we've implemented related to reopening of school, as an example, for both parents, for kids, for teachers and staff members. We need to know everybody's input because we have multiple stakeholders, and sometimes those stakeholders have differences of opinion and sometimes conflicting views about what needs to do. We have to analyze all that, come up with the right decision that's best for everybody.
Thank you. Candidate Graft. The issue is transparency.
Yes, I think it's critical, especially when you're navigating. It couldn't be more critical than when you're navigating times like these that are so uncertain and things are changing a lot. I've really admired how Superintendent Malloy he's put communication out there, and then he's edited it when he felt that he needed to do that. And I think that's really important. You know, you don't want to wait for the perfect communication because there never will be one in these times. The other thing is that we families are restricted to one-way communication with the board right now. And we have to change that. We have to make it more two-way. So if that's office hours, I believe very much that you need to go where the community is versus only expecting them to come where you are. So if that means being at the farmer's market, if it means hosting town halls, Marvel, I think that's a great idea. So just we've got to ramp it up more than ever, or we're going to lose families.
Candidate Clark, transparency is the subject.
I've seen an increase in the transparency since COVID hit. Previous to that, I felt like there was more in the communications that the district put out. They were more concerned about controlling the message and controlling the narrative than they were about informing parents. And that was alarming to me. Since Dr. Malloy has come on board and all of the COVID issues that we're dealing with, the board and the superintendent have kind of been forced to be more honest with the school community and all the stakeholders. So engaging all the stakeholders, having honest, genuine communications, telling parents the truth about why you're making the decisions and all of the facts behind the decisions is really, really important to this parent community. They want that information. They want it put out in an honest way. And I think that that's a really important way that we need to try to improve things. There's a lot of different things that we can use to do that, but I think honest communication is the most important.
Thank you. Candidate Graft. This voter wants to know, if you are running for school board for the first time, do you commit to the California School Boards Association governance training? If you are an incumbent, what governance training courses have you completed? And Candidate Graft will go first.
The answer is yes. So back to my interest statement, I'm a life learner, and I have like scoured the CSBA website and taken in as much information as I can, because it's so important, and it's just so important. So yes, sign me up for governance training. I cannot wait to get started.
Candidate Clark.
It's interesting. I've been asked this question before by somebody. I wonder if it's the same person. Absolutely, yes. I also am a lifelong learner, and I'm anxious to get started on all the things that I need to learn, because I certainly don't know everything, to be an effective board member. And so I look forward to that opportunity if I'm elected.
Candidate Marvel.
Yes, Well, having reported to superintendents, chancellors, and boards for the vast majority of my career, I was a cabinet level executive in a number of K-12 and higher ed institutions. I had to work with boards very closely. And as a staff member, as one famous superintendent said, I get my say and the board gets its way. You have to understand the dividing line between what an administrator is expected to do and what a board member is expected to do. Board members set policy. I'm fully aware of that. 20 years on the board, I get it. There is a line that you should not cross as a board member. I've taken governance training from CSBA. I've been to many, many CSBA conferences over the years, and I am fully aware of where a board member's role ends and a staff member's role begins. And districts get in trouble when school board members cross that line and try to run the daily in and out affairs of the district. We set policy and we hire the people to implement that policy, like Dr. Malloy.
Candidate Marvel, this next question goes to you first. We have two different questions about equitable education, and I'll read the questions as they were written. Given our high academic achieving district, if we are truly a community, we need to remember all the students. What is your direct experience in advocating for those students historically disenfranchised, such as those in special education or those that do not choose a traditional college track learning pathway? And a related question, would you advocate for equitable education for all students, especially given the circumstances in the current pandemic?
Yeah, so the answer to all those questions would be absolutely. I have probably been, since I got on the board 20 years ago, the strongest advocate on the board for special ed. I believe that we needed to reorganize the way we did special ed. There were times at the board meeting where I was emotional. I was literally pounding on the table saying this performance is unacceptable for our special needs kids. And there were changes that were made. I was successful in getting the majority of the rest of the board to agree. You can't do anything if it's just you. You have to make the arguments, convince the rest of the board this is the right move to make. So special ed, absolutely. I've also been the strongest advocate on the board for those students who have an achievement gap. You know, our white students and our Asian students are performing better than our African American and our Latino students. We have very high African American and Latino test scores, but they're not high enough. They need to be equal. And I've pushed for that as well, and we continue to push. Equity in these difficult times, every child, regular ed or special ed, needs to receive the best education possible with multiple doors open. When those kids leave, did we get 2 minutes because it was 2 questions?
Oh, okay. I'll allow you another 30 seconds. Is that okay, timers?
There's an example of me advocating. There you go. So,
Sorry, my timers are going to kill me after this.
There you go. So I also believe that the role of a school district is to ensure not just kids who want to go to college, but maybe you want to go to a tech school, maybe you want to go into the military to serve our country, that every door is open to you when you leave us, every single door of opportunity, which means you have to have a well-rounded educational program for everybody.
Thank you. Candidate Clark. The question was equitable education, non-college track learning, special education, considering everybody in the district.
So as I said before, special education has a special place for me because of my personal experience with my son. And through 12 years of school in the San Ramon Valley district, he has become very successful in his life and in his college career so far because of the services that he was provided through special education. So I know how important it is because of my own family, and I know how important it is to how hard it is sometimes to navigate, and that we need to do a better job of helping parents navigate special education and getting the services that they need. As far as students who don't take the college path, I am one of those students. I was one of those students. my life path and my educational path are not a straight line. And I did not choose to do the traditional college path. So I know how important career tech education is, and it's one of the things that I want to start to focus on if I'm elected to the board. I represent a portion of our student population that is not represented on this board right now. There are many board members who are well educated and have degrees, and those are all very valuable, and that's all very valuable. But there is nobody who has a path similar to the ones of our students who don't fit into that academic box. So both of those are very important to me in a very personal way. And I would want to represent all the students in our district with high academic standards, but also be able to offer those who don't fit into that category or those categories to have an equal opportunity. Equity is so important to me, and I'm committed to that.
Thank you. Candidate Graft, equitable education.
Yes, I am 100% dedicated to student achievement for all. And that means all. And like I said, I would want to lobby for more full and fair funding for special ed in Sacramento. I think it's an important next step. As Marvel said, we've done good things there, but you can always improve. And I have the energy and the passion to get in there and keep pushing this funding issue with the state for special ed. I believe that we want all of our students to graduate and be college and career ready. We want them to be critical thinkers. We want them to be independent learners, and we want them to be global citizens. So we want to do everything we can to round our students out and set them off on their way, whatever way they choose. Now, 95% of our students, according to the SRVUSD website, say that they plan to go to college. And that's awesome, because data shows that people who go to college and get advanced degrees, they have more choices. They have better health because they have better healthcare options, et cetera. So we want to do everything to support those students and that high number. But of course, we want to make it known to our students that we support them looking into trade options if that's what they're passionate about. And I think it's all about counselors like helping students navigate those choices. So again, we want critical thinkers, we want independent learners, and we want global citizens graduating from our schools.
Thank you. Candidate Clark, you're up first on this next question. Building strong community partnerships is critical to the success of the school district. What is your experience in building community partnerships and collaborative relationships to promote the welfare of our youth?
When I was PTSA president at San Ramon High School, the high school had a real problem with, interestingly enough, parking, because our high school is located in the downtown area. And as chairman of the co-chair of the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee, a new building was going to be built on the school grounds, which called for 63 new parking spaces. So please keep in mind that our students were getting up an hour early in the morning to get to school so they could get parking. In the meantime, the neighbors in the neighboring neighborhoods around the school were unhappy because there were so many kids parking in their neighborhoods. As co-chair of the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee, I worked with the town of Danville and Renee Morgan, who was one of our councilwomen, and helped secure $1.2 million to secure 240 parking spaces on the grounds of San Ramon Valley High School to relieve the stress of our students. I have a long history of working with the community and within the organizations in all of the schools to come together for our students.
Thank you. Candidate Marvel, community partnerships.
In my 20 years on the board, I've worked very closely with all of our community stakeholders, corporations, our Ed Foundation, and our parent and community groups. So let me give you an example. I was also on the board. I helped also shepherd through the changes in San Ramon Valley High's parking. I voted to support those changes that the town of Danville was offering. But we've also done many other things. We have school resource officers funded in large part by the city of San Ramon and the town of Danville because of the partnerships that I have helped create my time on the board. We get over $3 million a year from the town of Danville and the city of San Ramon and Contra Costa County for all those school buses that you see in the valley, helping to reduce traffic congestion. And that's because of a program called Traffics. So I was the initiator of that, and I had developed the kind of relationships with our our cities, our other public agencies to make that a reality.
Thank
and that
you.
brings it millions of dollars a year into the district.
Candidate Graft, community partnerships.
So I think community partnerships are very important, and I think it starts with the school community. So being a parent with kids currently in our schools, I'm in people's backyards. I've talked with like 5 Ed Fund presidents in the last 2 days. They're just part of the natural fabric of my day, and so I think that the partnerships start there. But I think community partnerships, our local community, and also outside of our normal community, but with the private sector all around us, I think there are a lot of opportunities to kind of like reach our tentacles out of our normal circle here and figure out ways to bring more funding to our schools, to remind the PeopleSofts and the Workdays and the Chevrons that, they're in our backyard, and there's some real opportunity to more tightly partner with them to bring monies our way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is going to be our final question, and then we're going to go into our closing statements where you can make your closing arguments for the voters. This questioner wants to know about standardized test. Candidate Marvel, you're going to start us off. Are you in agreement that the California standardized tests are administered only once in high school in the junior year versus being administered annually? Why or why not?
First of all, I'm a strong proponent of standardized testing. You need a process to understand where you're failing kids, where you need to tweak the process. You don't do that once. So frankly, if it was up to me, we'd have testing in all the grade levels, because we need to know what's working and what isn't working. A 3rd grade set of standards and curriculum is different than a 9th grade or a 10th grade. And so you need to build a foundation that is developed on facts and data about what's working and what isn't working, both at the district level and then at the school level. We know from data that some schools do better than others. Well, what are they doing right that another school isn't doing, why their test scores are lower? You can't do that if you're not providing testing every year. So I'm a strong proponent of standardized testing, as long as we then take that data and we use it in an effective way to enhance the delivery of education to our kids.
Candidate Graft, standardized testing.
Yes, I believe in data. I believe in data-backed decisions, and standardized tests give you data. And life is about tests. We encounter tests throughout our lives, and it shapes who we are. It helps us. It's an opportunity to learn how to manage the stress of preparing for a test. It's an opportunity to learn about what to do when you don't do as well as you thought you were going to do on a standardized test. It's the test is good for the data, but then the whole experience leading up to the test, taking the test, and celebrating after you've taken a test, that is just really it's important for our students to experience as they become critical thinkers, independent learners, and global citizens. So,
Candidate Clark, standardized tests.
I'm in favor of standardized tests also, but I also want to say that it's one measure. And there are a lot of kids, a lot of students who, like my son, who are very smart and intelligent, but may not test well. And so tests do give us some information about where kids are, but we have to take it a little bit further than just testing to really assess, okay, we have this information about a test. These kids didn't do well. These kids did better. We need to dig deeper to find out why that is and put in other mechanisms in place and other things that we use to make those assessments. I think tests standing alone are not the best way to assess how our kids are learning and what they're learning.
Thank you. Now the candidates will make closing statements. We'll go in the reverse order that was chosen by lot. This is your chance to make the closer for the voters. Candidate Graft, you have 90 seconds to sell us on your candidacy.
Okay. All right. I don't profess to have all of the institutional knowledge of my competitors. I also do not think I have all the answers. But what I do know is that this job is not just about knowledge or experience. It's actually much more about judgment and connection. Who's going to make the right call? Who's got the perspective when an important decision affecting our whole community comes up for a vote? Was it the right judgment to give an outgoing superintendent a retro raise on his way out the door? Was it a good call to slow play the waiver process for our elementary school kids when the data keeps reinforcing that it's been safe for them to return? The right judgment comes from those who have reason to care. I'm not saying that any of us care more about our kids than any other, but I am saying that nobody would ever question where I stand when it comes to my priority. I would put kids first. It's also important to have parents of kids currently in our schools because challenges are always evolving. I mean, look at social media challenges, look at vaping and gummies. And I mean, these are just things that the challenges are always evolving. You need to have a board that's connected to that. So the right judgment comes from those who are connected, those who are spending every day talking to parents, teachers, and kids about what they're learning. You know, I'm constantly asking my kid, how was your day? My teacher, what kinds of things happened? Only a parent's going to have that kind of connection to what our community educational needs are. We have some great candidates for the seat, and there are many accomplishments between us, but those accomplishments are the past. We need to be looking to the future, a future that moves so fast that if you're getting farther from the day-to-day, you're losing touch.
Thank you. Candidate Clark and Marvel, I'll give you a little extra time as well in your closing statements if you go over. Candidate Clark.
It has been said that the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. If you want to know who I will be as a board member, here are a few examples of what I have accomplished as a parent leader the last 12 years. As chairperson of the Parcel Tax Oversight Committee, I changed the way parcel taxes are accounted for, bringing them into compliance with the ballot measure. I successfully advocated to change the bell schedule at San Ramon High School to relieve student stress with a later start time. I actively negotiated with teachers as a member of the district homework committee to change the district homework policy to benefit our students' mental health. I actively opposed district cuts to high school sections that put 60 students in PE classes and increase class sizes. I'm a founding member of the Challenge Success Team for San Ramon High School, a program that helps students create a more balanced academic life. I instituted the very first online registration systems for both Charlotte Wood Middle School and San Ramon High School that are still in use today. As vice chair of the Facilities Oversight Committee, I successfully advocated and secured 240 parking spaces for San Ramon High School by working with the town of Danville to secure $1.2 million. I worked to preserve the 7th period for all high schools in the San Ramon district. I was awarded the Shining Star Award from the San Ramon Valley Education Foundation 3 times, more than any other person in the district. That's what I was able to accomplish as a parent leader. Imagine what I could do on our school board. I will hit the ground running on day 1. If you want a fresh voice who will bring results, vote for me on November 3rd.
Thank you. Candidate Marvel.
Thank you. So first I want to thank my fellow candidates for putting themselves out there. It's an arduous process. and it's equally arduous once you get on the board, trust me. I spent 20 years, yes, admittedly, I fully admit, 20 years on the board, but my past experience and my past accomplishments show that we can do wonderful things with good board members on this board. We went from a good district to an excellent district, one of the highest rated in the state of California and the nation. We have good financial controls. We've taken $1.5 billion in new schools and implemented those at my time on the board. $700 million in new facility modernization projects successfully completed. We have some of the highest paid teachers in California because of it, even though we're second lowest funded in California. How did we do that? Because we use our money wisely and effectively. We are now faced with massive challenges. The things that we've done successfully in my last 20 years, that's a good predictor of what's going to happen as we go through the current crisis that we're faced with. Good decision-making based on knowledge, on facts, and experience. You're going to get that as we get through the pandemic. We get through the budget crisis that's going to hit us next year with the state's budget in free fall and declining enrollment, which nobody's really talked about here tonight, declining enrollment. And one final comment, we did not slow walk the waiver process. We were prohibited by the county from submitting the waiver process until very recently. And as soon as we got the final criteria, we applied. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Marvel. These are your 3 candidates for Trustee Area 2, San Ramon Valley Unified School District. If this were a live audience, I would ask the audience to give these 3 candidates a hand, because we voters appreciate those of you willing to do the hard work to make sure we have good quality elected officials and we have choices. But we'll give you all a virtual hand. Thank you very much. And this forum was sponsored by the San Ramon Valley PTSA. If you watched it live, you watched it on the League of Women Voters YouTube channel. It will be available on that channel if you want to watch it again, or if you want to tell your friends to watch it. I apologize for any glitches that we had. This was our first Zoom forum. Voters, if you would like a lot of information to help you make your decisions this November, please visit the League of Women Voters award-winning website, www.votersedge.org. There you'll find much information on all the candidates on your ballot and on the California state and local ballot measures that you will be voting on. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, public health authorities are urging voters to vote by mail this election. In this county, we're fairly used to this. 72% of us voted by mail in the last election. If you are registered to vote, you do not need to request a ballot. Our county will mail you a ballot on October 5th. If you are not registered to vote, the registration deadline is October 19th. You may also register and vote in person on early voting days, October 30th, 31st, and November 2nd. Instructions will be in your ballot packet and on the county elections website. And finally, polling places are also available, and those instructions will be in your ballot packet. Election day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Be sure to register, be sure to vote. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.